USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Edge for Friday, March 1st, 2024. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Dan Rubin. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. Well, gentlemen, it's playoff time already in one of the conferences, Atlantic Hockey. And while there aren't official odds out there, it's a chance for us to play You Are the Bookie. So you guys are bookies. You guys are going to be the AI that thinks about it. We'll talk about a little of the numbers that go around the game and see if we can come up with a consensus on odds for these games. And if you happen to find some odds out there, or if you want to have fun with your friends, you can do that too. The first of the matchups pits number 11 against number 6. Robert Morris, they've come back from a year off. They've had an okay season, but they are at the bottom of the league. Bentley is rejuvenated under new head coach Andy Jones. Robert Morris has the lowest offense in the league, the worst offense in the league at 2.47 goals a game. And Bentley has the best defense at 2.29 goals per game, and both teams have had good goaltending. The tandem of Hasley and Grabko for Bentley and Veltri and Bovair have maybe given up a lot of goals against, but they have had to make a ton of saves. So, and earlier this season they split. So why don't we look at that one? And I think since I gave you those numbers on goals against for the two teams, maybe we start out with an over-under before we put a money line on this.
Well, I'm going to start with the over/under, and I'm going low. I'm going 5.5. You've got good goaltending, and that might set off my money line a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have such a wide money line. We'll get to that, but 5.5, Dan, is that too low?
No. And my big thing of this is one, bet on the broadcaster. I mean, bet on the fact that the broadcaster is going to have himself a good time, since Bentley hasn't hosted a game at home in a couple of years, and hasn't hosted a game that I've actually been able to call the game since 2019, because I did that Air Force playoff game from my living room. So if you're going to bet on somebody, bet on me having a good time this weekend. But I like 5.5 if we're talking about it like in terms of prediction, because I think neither one of these teams is capable or is capable of tipping over that to go out and win a game 5-1. Like I don't think a team like Robert Morris is going to get to 3, and I don't think a team like Bentley, if Robert Morris isn't going to get to 3, is then going to score 5 to win the game. I think this trends to a 3-2 game in either direction. You might be able to hit the over if it's a 2-goal game, or it's getting close, or it's 3-0 in the third period to either side, and then you pull the goalie with 6 minutes left because it's a playoff game, and you give up a bunch of empty net goals. I mean, that's always a possibility. I would think that this would be a game that is low scoring. Bentley's defense has been its trademark this year. Andy Jones came in and did a wonderful job of changing the way Bentley played the game to center around getting into the dirty areas, playing well defensively, and the two goaltenders have become two of the best in the nation. Bentley's, I think, with a 5th or 6th defense ranked in the country. So this is one of those games that if it goes low, I think that also benefits Bentley. And if we're dealing with kind of money lines as a result, or looking at that, I think there are long odds on Robert Morris. I think the preseason prediction had Robert Morris at 10 and Bentley at 11. Robert Morris has obviously had to do some more gelling as a team based on the fact that they were coming back from their inactivity as a program from everything that happened. Bentley just had to learn a new style and still had a number of players come back. So I would put longer odds on Robert Morris. I would go probably plus 300, if not higher. I mean, this may be one of those upper numbers that we see.
Let me ask you one question, Dan. How has Bentley been against odd man rushes and breakaways against them?
They've done a great job. I mean, anything defensive, they have done just a wonderful job of getting back. Like it is. If you're a fan of fundamental hockey, that is a hockey team to watch. Like you get an odd man rush, guys are coming back, they're filling the gaps, they're filling in the lanes. And if you have that, you're not going to get the 2-on-1 cross ice pass that gets a goalie going the wrong direction. And because they've practiced it, or they've trained on it, or they've just stressed it, or whatever it is the coaches have done, you're going to have a goaltender who's going to know how to line up with his defenseman. So if the defenseman's coming back to break up a lane, the goaltender's almost got the spot to know exactly where the shot's going to go. So those odd man rushes coming back, they do a really good job of blocking shots. They do a really good job of stopping things. But conversely, so does Robert Morris. I mean, I know they faced a lot of shots, but at the same time, you know, if the difference is a goal per game, I think depending on when you start shortening rosters, the fact that Robert Morris has played well in the second half of the season, we all know Derek Schooley's a really good postseason coach. This is a whole other ball game, and when we start talking about a single game elimination.
Yeah, I see this in terms of money line. I had Robert Morris is a plus 350. I had Bentley as a minus 500. When I had to handicap this one, I had Bentley a 3-1 winner. You do make a good point there about what happens if you pull your goalie late, and 2-1 turns to 3-1, turns to 4-1, turns to 5-1. I still wouldn't up the over/under over 5.5 if I was a bookmaker. That's a perfect number. A lot of people will take would take the under. This is not a line. These are fake lines we're all giving out. These are made up. If you can find these anywhere, go with them. But these are our baselines. I wouldn't go to 6 because I think there would be too many pushes on 6. If I was a bookmaker, I'd love to have 5.5 as the number.
Yeah, and how many times can you actually bank on a team giving up 3 empty net goals? I mean, the only time
in the postseason, plenty.
Yep. I was going to say, unless you are Dan Rubin and my brother Mike calling 2019 Princeton Brown
it happens a ton. You know, coaches they realize, hey, we got to keep pulling our goaltender. You're down by 1. Okay, pull him. Okay, now we're down by 2. Pull him. We're down by 3. Hey, why not? Just pull him. Maybe there's 2 minutes left. Let's try to score 3 in 2 minutes, or score 2 in 2 minutes. Then you give up another one. Next thing you know, you're down massive. It's a 5-1 game.
So Jimmy has plus 350 and minus 500. You had a plus 300 on Bentley. What do you say for your minus?
I'd probably go minus. I'd go about the same. I'd probably say for me, I'd probably bring it down a bit and maybe go minus 400, or land it in the middle and go minus 450. I don't necessarily think that and that's basing it too on the way both teams have played a bit down the stretch, which is Robert Morris has played well, but hasn't won the last couple of weeks, even though they had done well before that. And Bentley had a shot on the last day of the season to get a bye, and they won that shootout, which had they not had a shootout and it just been a tie, we might have had some different playoff matchups. So they won their way into this position. So that's why I bring the odds down a little bit from Jimmy.
Well, let's turn to Army and Niagara. Niagara tied Bentley in points, but on the tiebreaker is the 7th seed. Army is the 10th seed. The Black Knights, it's sort of been like 3 different seasons for them, with a great middle and not so great on either end. But they've allowed the second most goals in D1 hockey this season. And the real standout number is how many goals they've allowed. 3, if they allow 3 goals or less, Army is 10-2-2, and they're 0-19 if they give up more than 3. Niagara is 12-0-2 in scoring 4 goals or more. My input on Niagara is they've been inconsistent. They can blow out a team or get blown out. That happened to them in the last week of the season. This is the first time they've ever met up. But given what we've seen about goals and numbers given up, how do you guys look at this? I guess approach it any way you want, whether you want to start with over-under or money line first, go for it.
I mean, I really like Army as a team, what I saw of them in person, but I also know that they've struggled a lot. And as you just pointed out, the goals they allow are way too high. So I'll give you both lines right now. I put the over under at a 6, flat 6. And I was thinking about 6.5, but I'm going to say flat 6 because 6.5 in a playoff game, it seems a little too high. My Niagara line would be minus 240, Army plus 190. I see Army as a little bit of value here. But I just don't know that they've played well enough. And when I really have to handicap this game, and the reason I go with 6, I see this, probably a 4-1 Niagara game, maybe a 3-1, but maybe a 4-2, and that's your push. I don't see a ton of goals being scored here in total, especially from Army. So my concern here is the number of goals that are going to be scored in total. Does it go over? Yeah, it could go to 5-2 easily. But I really see this one. My handicapping says 4-1 Army.
I actually say 6.5 on the over under. I give you that half. I take the half in there.
I don't mind that. Like I should have done that really when I think about it.
And it's one of those things where I see 6.5 and if I see 6, I think over. Because I think this game could be one of those 4-3 games or worse, because I think both of these teams are prone to giving up a lot of goals. I do think in terms of what you said about value, what were the numbers you gave minus 190 on?
I gave plus 190 for Army, minus 240 for Niagara.
I would actually push those a little further apart, but someone in Atlantic hockey is going to lose at home. And over the last number of years, and it doesn't matter what I guess I would put Army at. And I think Army's maybe plus 175 and bring the odds down a bit. But I do think that the value is on Army in general because of all of the teams in the first round that are playing at home. I think Niagara might be the most susceptible because Niagara has to score. And I think if this goes to if this turns into a track meet in any capacity, like this is the game that I think is going to go to overtime and Army's probably going to win this one. This could be a 5-4 game in the postseason. Like this is the way I've kind of felt about it. At the same time, I don't think it's going to be a 5-1 Army win or a 4-1 Army win. I think this is going to be pile up your goals and Army wins. If this stays low and this trends towards what I said as an under at 6.5, then I think Niagara wins. But there is a ton of value on Army as an underdog in this one.
So, Dan, you had Army at plus 175. Where do you have Niagara?
The more I think about it, the more I probably say minus maybe 190, maybe minus 175, maybe, but I go maybe 190 there.
You're going to balance.
Yeah.
Plus 175 minus 175. Hey, the bookmakers don't have to make money. Why
no, exactly. Like
your sportsbook, the Dan Rubin sportsbook.
Nobody makes money.
Everybody makes the same. Nobody makes money.
Yeah, 190. When I'm doing the math in my head and I'm trying to go off the balance, based on where I have Army, that's where I'm trying to figure out what the balance side of it. Because I like Army so much that I trying to handicap it in my head for Niagara here.
By the way, can I throw one thing at you guys right now? The key to this series or this game for Niagara, their power play.
Yes.
They can score 23% or better in this game, they're going to win. If their power play struggles and Army's penalty kill succeeds, no, I think that Niagara loses. That is their key. And listen, on the other side, their penalty kill has not been good. Below 80%, barely 79.8. But that's one of those stats. Those are the two stats I always look at in a postseason. And if one team can kind of live up to their good power play billing, it goes a long way.
And if I knew which crew was assigned, I'd know how many power plays there were going to be and know how many power play goals there were going to be.
I always think that'll be reduced a little bit no matter what in the playoffs.
Yep, that's true. The third one in Atlantic hockey has number 9 Mercyhurst taking a short drive for from Erie to downtown Buffalo to take on number 8 Canisius. And our friend Chris Lurch, who covers Atlantic hockey, has been providing a lot of info for us on this 109th meeting between the schools, a rivalry that goes way before Atlantic hockey and the MAC. Mercyhurst has had some good wins this season, but they also went 0-9 from January to the early part of February. Canisius has had some good wins too, including beating Air Force twice. These are two teams that like to transition quickly. And I always like to say that Mercyhurst is probably the most unpredictable team in Atlantic hockey, but Canisius on their home ice, knowing the peculiarities of the shape of the ice and how things go, they love to break up ice. Both of these teams like to dangle a guy. So my first input on this is I would not be surprised to see a high scoring game in this. And I wouldn't be surprised to see one team dominate in this because they've been so erratic, both these teams throughout the season. So with that thrown at you, what do you look at for over, under, and a money line?
Well, I think the crazy thing is that both of these teams give up a ton of goals. Probably 20 more goals than they score. They give up. That is probably going to ring true here. So I would say that both teams will score a lot. And as you said, they are both faster teams up the ice. Defense, not the strongest suit for either team, from what we can tell stat wise. So I'll go an over under first. I'll go 6.5 on this one. Dan will love that one. He probably wants it at 7.5. I'm going to actually go closer on the money line. I'm going to go plus 140 on Mercyhurst, minus 100 on Canisius.
Oh, you stole my line. That was exactly what I was going to go with. I was kind of hoping I was going to go first. Oh, I got the exact same line. Exact same money line. And truthfully, and I would actually throw this in there, I would set an over-under on this at 6.5, largely because of the playoff factor. And the fact that these teams, even though we love to say how they're erratic and all this other stuff, the part of it that gets me is you look at some of the Mercyhurst results, and that's kind of the wild card in this. I think you know what you're going to get out of Canisius's offense. I think you're going to get anywhere between 2 and 3 goals. That's about what they do. The wild card is, can a Mercyhurst offense that scored 6 against RIT and scored 6 against Niagara and scored 4 against Bentley and scored 5 against Canisius and scored 5 against Air Force, can that same team put those same type of numbers in against the Canisius defense that has been missing the spark when you don't have the same goaltender that you had last year? So for me, that's kind of where I look at the number and I see a 6.5 and I say, I don't know. I like that would be a perfect number for me. If it's 7, I think it goes under and we're looking at a 4-3 game. I don't know that we're going to get a 7-6 game. But I think we're going to get maybe a 5-2, 5-3 game. But I also could see this being a 4-2 game because I think if that trends that way, Mercyhurst is going to win in Canisius. At the same time, that's also not a bet I'd really like to take. So that's where I love what you're doing for the odds. I would actually see. And I hate puck lines, but I mentioned them. I mentioned at least one puck line now a week. I could see this being one of those where Mercyhurst is a 1.5 underdog, and that has more value than them actually being the outright underdog. Like I would rather take them as at 1.5 or something like that or Canisius being a 1.5 goal favorite and taking Mercyhurst to cover that as opposed to taking the outright spread, the outright money line. I mean,
I will throw some numbers at you. These teams did play 3 times. They had a 5-1 win for Mercyhurst, a 3-3 tie. So that's a 4-3 game in the playoffs. You can't have a 3-3 tie. So that's going over. And then a 3-2 game. So these games did stay under. The one thing I would put in, I know you love to throw in puck line. If I had to set a line on a 60-minute odds, so that factors in a tie, I would say Mercyhurst plus 165, Canisius minus 145, and then I'd put the tie at probably plus 225. That would be fun.
Yeah.
That would be a fun one to bet, and I'd probably bet that 225.
Yeah, I like it.
Because that's the other thing. there's going to be an upset in one of these games, and there's going to be overtime in one of these games.
Well, I can tell you the overtime's coming at Bentley because
there's always overtime in these.
Yeah.
And that's what makes these single elimination games so fantastic. It's why I credit Steve Metcalf and Hockey East for, doing it through his whole playoff. I know that this is only one round until the championship game in Atlantic hockey, and I think that's the way the Big Ten's going too. But I love these single elimination. Get it over in one day. You got to play for one game and play your best for one game.
Listen, in the last, I think 3 pre-COVID postseasons, I'm guaranteed at least one overtime game and one multiple overtime game. And since this is not a best of 3, this is like, I know what's coming. I know I've got a long night at the office coming on Saturday. I would bet the 60-minute tie on the Bentley game then, just on the Dan Rubin factor.
I'm in the building with you that night. I'd like to be home kind of early on Saturday night.
Well, and Ken Schott might be somewhere else, so you don't have to worry about overtime, right?
Well, if Ken Schott and me were in the same building, this sucker's going top 10 longest all-time
Yeah,
games.
I don't know if he's going to hop in the car and drive to Cornell this weekend or not. When we come back, we're going to take a look at 3 games with money lines in ECAC, NCHC, and Big Ten. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Where are my hockey fans at? Present. Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA Ice Hockey Championship time, when the hottest teams in the country face off under one roof. Be there to see your squad hoist the ultimate trophy overhead. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with USCHO Edge. 3 games towards the end of the regular season. First one we're looking at is in the ECAC, and the odds are very long on this one. Clarkson plus 325, Quinnipiac minus 475. Over under is 6. I think I've learned from you guys, run the other way on this one.
I don't know. I didn't run the other way. Well, again, this is me betting. I don't bet. But in terms of running the other way, I advised every time I saw a lopsided odd like this, I advised the other way. And it was Colorado College against North Dakota. And guess what? The underdog won. Now, I'm not going to say that that's going to happen all the time, and that's kind of a rare thing. I don't know where I want to go with this one here. It's really long odds. I'm just looking at the 60-minute line on this one, where you're down to Clarkson plus 400, Quinnipiac minus 240. I think Quinnipiac wins this game. I think they win it in regulation. So I would rather go the 60-minute line and find minus 240 than a crazy line that you mentioned. What was it, Ed? Minus 325. That's just a little strong for my blood. I love Quinnipiac here. Clarkson has not been playing well enough, and Quinnipiac is playing their best hockey. Quinnipiac's at home, a place that they win. I know you're trying to say stay away. I get it. And if this was certain other teams out there in the country, I'd say, hey, throw some pizza money on this. $20 on this could be a little fun bet. On Clarkson, no. There's no money heading toward Clarkson, in my opinion, right now. No offense to Casey Jones, great guy, great team typically, but this is not their team. They're not playing their best hockey.
Yeah, I think this is a game that winds up with Quinnipiac and Quinnipiac big. I mean, Quinnipiac is, they clinched the Cleary Cup. Okay, so you're looking at this team and you're saying, all right, regular season championship, doesn't matter what happens. Are they going to rest guys? Nope. They cannot rest a single guy in this. They can't lose these games. And that doesn't mean that they're going to fall out of the rankings or anything like that. But if they want to be a 2 seed in the national tournament, they've got to win them. These 2 games have to be won. And they know it. They know what's on the line. And Rand Pecknold does a really good job of saying, if we want to control our fate, we have to win games. And that is something that he does exceptionally well as a head coach, is not play into it, but also kind of just know the overarching message. So you're at home. The trophy is probably going to be there, I would imagine, because they were awarded it at Meehan Auditorium last Friday. They haven't lost in a couple of weeks when they lost to St. Lawrence. And even then, they played really well against Clarkson the next night. They have figured out whatever it was that involved the sweep at Cornell and Colgate. They are a machine back. And for that reason, and you just can't take a team that based on the odds, when you look at the number, just because Clarkson is, you look at it and say, well, Clarkson's pretty good. Clarkson's picked up this, that, I think I don't like it. Maybe if this were at Lake Placid, I'd say, yeah, I would actually take Clarkson, neutral ice, but at Quinnipiac, knowing what's at stake, wouldn't touch this one.
And Rand Pecknold, I don't know if it was your column, Dan, or somewhere else I read it, but he mentioned how he understands how much the pairwise affects his team and how he really wants to be a 2 or 1 seed. So at least in that first game, he guarantees himself the last change. That was a quote in your column, right? Like, I mean, that's something he actually thinks about. And I always think about Rand Pecknold, and I don't know how many people like him or hate him. I love his hockey mind. I love his hockey IQ. He thinks a step ahead. He was the guy that told me last season that he was having his assistant coaches watch video of other Division I players in case they got into the portal. Like, no other coach is doing that. There's very few. Maybe there's some others, but I've not talked to them. That just shows his mind is one step ahead of a lot of other coaches. The little things matter to him, and this game becomes a little thing. And I don't think he appreciates losing to Clarkson anymore. I think they've had a couple of tough games over the years, maybe against Clarkson. They don't like those games. So heading into the tournament, he's going to want his team firing on all cylinders. If I'm betting Quinnipiac, though, the 60-minute line, plus 200, awesome line.
Well, let's go to one in the Big Ten. This has got first place in the league possibly on the line this weekend. Michigan State, a plus 120 at Wisconsin, minus 150. Over and under on this one is 6.
Whoosh. I don't like anything about this one. I've been a little high on Michigan State the whole year. So even as a road dog, I like Michigan State. I'm just going to say that straight out. I think that Michigan State is the better team. I think Michigan State will win the Big Ten. I think Michigan State should win the Big Ten championship. I think they have all the components. There's a lot of things that go right for them. Neither one of these teams, when you come down to it, have the postseason experience. They don't have those. They haven't played in these big games enough. So I don't know that there's an advantage there. I do think that maybe Mike Hastings in the college level has coached in a lot more of these big games. But I also think, I don't know. I don't see that as a massive disadvantage for Michigan State. I look at this as a value bet a little bit on Michigan State. Over under, leave it alone. This feels like a 3-2 game. This does not feel like a 4-3 game. This does not feel like a 4-2 game. Does not feel like. Did you say it was? You said it was 6, Ed, right? So 6 is a push. I still don't like it. Don't love over under here. Just don't want to touch it.
You know, it's funny. You say that about Michigan State. You've been high on them all year. I've been high on Wisconsin all year. Yeah. And the way you feel about Michigan State is the way I feel about Wisconsin. And that's a reason why I really like Wisconsin. I actually really love everything about this. I actually love Wisconsin, maybe even I'm confident enough. Again, I don't love puck line bets, but puck line of 1.5. I actually think they can win this game by 2, which is a 1-goal game with an empty netter at the end. So I really do believe that this is going to be a 4-2 type of game or 3-1 type of game. I don't think this is going to be a 1-goal game. I think this is going to be a 1-goal game with an empty netter. But I also think Wisconsin's going to win. And I think Wisconsin's going to win the regular season in the Big Ten. I don't know if they're going to win the Big Ten championship, but I think that they are going to win the regular season championship and earn that bye in the Big Ten. And I think that, obviously, I think Michigan State really lost an opportunity last week with that loss to Ohio State. I know they came back and won on Saturday. I know that they have played exceptional hockey dating back the last couple of months, the last couple of weeks. I mean, they, after that split with Michigan, the split with Minnesota, the split with Notre Dame, though I know they played really well at Michigan. The loss to Ohio State, to me, was enough to look at it and say they've done too much splitting. And I know they've played really good hockey, but they've done too much splitting. And I think Wisconsin is just a better team in general. I know that's going to blow up in my face.
Does the 4-2, 3-2 win by Michigan State this year factor in any way in this?
I don't think so, because it was too long ago. I mean, it was early November, or mid-November. And I think too much has happened since then.
Here's where it does factor in. If Wisconsin's going to win the regular season outright, they've got to do it this weekend with a win and an overtime win or a shootout win.
Right. Just to get the share. And then don't forget that there's pairwise on the docket here. If Michigan State takes 2 more wins, forget about it. Wisconsin, you cannot catch Michigan State anymore.
And then Michigan State gets to come to Springfield, Massachusetts.
We'll just leave it right there.
We'll leave it right at that. Okay, that's it. Yep, that's it.
The last one for this elongated episode is Denver at St. Cloud. The Pioneers are minus 140. The Huskies are plus 110. Here's what's really big about this pair of games this weekend, and we're just talking Friday. Denver has 36 points. They're in 3rd place in the NCHC. St. Cloud State has 40 points. Denver has a chance to catch St. Cloud, or St. Cloud has a chance to pretty much cement 2nd place. Should give you the over-under, too. 7.
Yeah, 7 is a crazy number. But when you factor in Denver, is it a crazy number? These teams played already once. They were 5-1, 4-4. So, yes, surprising. One game was 8. One game was 6. Is that shocking when we come to an over and under of 7? No. That's what AI is doing to our wonderful world of sports gambling. I love the way Denver's playing of late. They're better. They had that loss to Western where they just got blown away. And I remember talking to Dave Starman right after that, and I said, "What happened?" He said they're young and they make mistakes, and that's how you get 7-2 losses. But since then, they've had a 5-4 win, overtime over Duluth, a 5-2 win. They tied Miami, won the shootout. I know that was not a good game. David Carl said it, and then had an 8-1 shutout win. The one goal they scored into their own empty net. I still like the way that Denver's playing right now. St. Cloud State, I don't want to take tons away from them, but their second half, has not been probably what you want. The loss to Denver back in January, they had a tie, then a loss to North Dakota, then a tie, a loss to North Dakota, then a tie. That's 6 games that a win. Then they finally beat Colorado College. Great win, lose to them. They sweep Miami. No offense to Miami. A lot of teams have been sweeping them. And then they split with Western. I don't know Dan, who you were talking about, you said there was too many splits. I think it was Michigan State. There's too many splits for St. Cloud right now for me. So I really like Denver here.
Yeah, same idea for me. St. Cloud, when I say that there's too many splits, it's one of those things we also have to look at who the splits are against. And prohibitively, when I was talking about Michigan State, where the teams, when you're splitting with Minnesota, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, that's not splitting with Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin is to me a better team. And it's kind of the same idea here, which is St. Cloud splits with Western Michigan. They split with Colorado College. The split with I think there wasn't a split. It was a win. It was a loss and a tie to North Dakota, a loss and a tie to Omaha. So that's a little less than a split. So, and now you're playing Denver, who I still think is the best team in the NCHC, even though they're not going to finish as a number 1 seed in the tournament, right? Like, this is one of those years when Denver could come out and win the whole thing. Like, they conceivably, and I know they're, that's putting it out there, Dan. You're picking Denver to win a national championship. Really reached into your bag of tricks for that one. But that also means that I think Denver is picking up a notch right now. And I also think that they are such a solid team from top to bottom. I think they can score from anywhere. I think they're a little better defensively than I might give them credit for because of the amount of goals that they score. And I just really like Denver. It's one of those things where the sweep to North Dakota aside, the split with Western aside, I just really like what they bring to the table. And for that, I don't think St. Cloud is going to win these games. Now, that said, St. Cloud has a little something that they have to play for. Pairwise implication here, which is that it's a little something extra. If they win these games, if they win both of them, the whole pairwise is going to get thrown for a loop. So I think St. Cloud has a lot to play for at home. I just really like Denver, but that's where I put the value on St. Cloud. When I put the value on St. Cloud as a team that, I would take, especially in that home underdog spot.
Yeah, that was my one comment that I would have made, that St. Cloud needs these wins so bad. They have been a good NCHC team. They've been a mediocre non-conference team, and thus they're sitting there right in the bubble. And if they get these 2 wins, or even if they take a win to tie, a win and overtime loss, they're in pretty good shape. They have to get 1 win. They need to get more than half of the points, I guess you would say, available this weekend to move their pairwise up. And if they get all of the points, that really does do a lot for them.
Well, and consider just the last piece of that too, with the pairwise, the teams that they're trying to avoid being chased down by. And you've got Michigan, I know, plays Minnesota, which I don't think could necessarily help. Well, no, if they win those games, that's going to be helped, because I was wondering, I think Minnesota's 8 in the pairwise right now. So if Michigan wins those games, they're going to creep up. And then you have to start watching UMass and hope that UMass loses 1 to Lowell. And then you have to watch Western and hope that Western slips up. I don't like sitting in that 13-14 spot right now, given what's in conference tournaments.
Yeah, the only thing I will say about that is that as St. Cloud sits there, they're 11 right now. For them to get up to 9 or 8, so that's Minnesota, Maine, I don't think they can even worry about those teams. They have to worry about Providence, Western, UMass, and Michigan, and Colorado around them.
Right.
Those are the teams that are actually within the pairwise. The RPI will change closely. I don't think that St. Cloud, even if Minnesota were to lose 2 this weekend and St. Cloud wins 2, I don't think their RPI moves up enough.
No. I meant because Minnesota's playing Michigan. So if Michigan wins those games, then that's what I thought I was. Sorry, that's probably my fault. Yeah.
I get confused by you.
So yeah. I spent too much time talking about Minnesota.
Not a shocker. That's not your department. We're going to leave you into the ECAC world and gambling. You're not a pairwise expert. We get it.
I'll throw one other thing in here. St. Cloud State, and Brett Larson has not been shy about this, has been the victim of some inconclusive video for a couple weekends in a row. And they've got to feel a little bit snake bitten, and also feel like they should be right in the mix of that number 2 seed in a regional.
I think you're right. And I think that they, it's okay to play with a chip on your shoulder. And I think that, intentional or unintentional, Brett Larson has done a great job of placing his team into a position where his team probably feels like they've been screwed over a little. And that's okay. I love coaches that do that. Know your surroundings. And the surroundings currently for St. Cloud is that they should feel like they've been maybe marginalized.
And with that, we'll wrap up this edition of USCHO Edge. Enjoy the hockey this weekend. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. For Jim Connelly, for Dan Rubin, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Edge.